Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2 o'clock. Eyes down for the next Highways and Transport and Waste Scrutiny meeting. Okay, so today's meeting is as usual broadcast live, and for those of you not able to watch live, the webcast will be recorded and made available for viewing on the County Council's website after the meeting. Apologies have been received from Mr. Cook, and I can welcome Mr. Robinson, who is attending on behalf of Mr. Cook, and Mr. Rudkin has been replaced by Mr. Innes. Before we begin, can I remind everybody to turn their microphones on when they wish to speak, are invited to speak, and off when they're finished? And can we please put all our phones on silent or turn them off? Okay. Now, the first item is the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of January. I move that these minutes are taken as read, confirmed, and signed. Is that all agreed? Okay. Any to the contrary? Jolly good. Thank you very much. Now, question time. We've received 2 questions. I will take these in order. They were received. Both of these have been published online and were circulated to committee members. Members are reminded, as per usual practice, there is to be no discussion on the responses provided. Both questioners will have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question, which must be only for the purpose of clarifying responses provided and should not be a new question. Now, I believe that Mr. Stairs is not with us and he's not joining us online, but I welcome Mrs. Einan, who is in attendance, to ask a supplementary question. And that's it.
Thank you, Chair. And I hope you'll forgive me if I have 2 very short questions. Some of you will know that I was the doctor at fault for moving Hugglescote surgery to the bottom of a hill in Hugglescote. And so my first question is, will any risk assessment, which we have been promised in 4 weeks, and thank you for that, take into account the risks to the health and well-being of not providing a bus stop, most particularly the risks to patients who need access to the surgery, but who are unable to drive? And also, given that bus stops being those very small things that bother people, would it be possible for the bus stop assessment to include a short site meeting including all the local elected members, not just from this council, but also the district council and parish council, all of whom are aware of this question? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. And my apologies, Dr. Einan. Mrs. Carruthers, would you like to answer those questions, either of them now, or would you like to give a written response at a later date?
I think we could do both, Chair, if that's all right. I'll take the opportunity while we're here, but we can certainly follow up with a written response. In answer to the first one, we haven't done a specific health and well-being assessment in relation to this particular bus stop or route. However, we have carried out, with our bus service improvement plan, we have carried out an equality impact assessment, which looks at, as you'll be aware, against those protected characteristics, including age, etc., disability, looks at the wider impacts on those protected characteristics in terms of what we're doing around bus services and bus provision. Your second question there about the bus stop assessment and a short site meeting, I would just caveat that officers in assessing where bus stops can go and where we think it's suitable to put them do follow guidance, and a key prime factor in that is obviously safety. You know, can we get a safe location? We're happy to accommodate a meeting then with the relevant people that you would like to attend.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mrs. Einan. Now, you're perfectly welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, but you've probably got a life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will leave.
Okay, item number 3, questions from members using standing order 32(1), and I have no such questions. Number 4 is to advise of any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda, and I've not. So we've got no such items. And number 5, declarations of interest in respect to the items on the agenda. Now, I understand that Mr. Bradshaw and Mr. MacDonald both operate both have other registrable interests in the agenda item 9, Highways and Transport Capital Programme. Mr. Bradshaw is a trustee of Syston Voluntary Centre who received funding to deliver. It's much better with your own teeth, isn't it? Funding to deliver passenger transport, and Mr. MacDonald is a trustee and owner of Beaver Bus, who are contracted to deliver passenger transport. I believe the monitoring officer guidance is that both are still able to participate as part of the discussions on that item. Are there any other declarations? Jolly good, then we'll move on to item number 6. Are there any declarations of the party whip? Jolly good. And to number 7, I have not received any petitions. So number 8 is now our first substantive item, and can I recommend to the meeting the Cabinet Lead Member, Mr. Tilbury, and the Director, Anne Carruthers, Assistant Directors, Jana Walker and Pat Clark. I understand we also have Mr. Graham Compton and Matthew Chester from the Leicestershire Police, and I welcome you all. Right, I first invite Jana to introduce the report. Over to you, Jana.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm introducing what is quite a long, comprehensive report with a number of appendices today on Leicestershire County Council's approach to road casualty reduction. And this is based on a complete set of figures from 2024. So I know that sort of now we're in January 2026. Well, not in January, are we? We're in March 2026. We are looking back at a complete set of figures for 2024. Included within the report as well, just for kind of information and comparison, are our indicative figures for 2025, but they haven't been confirmed yet. And this, I just wanted to sort of draw out the sort of complexity of dealing with statistics as well. One of the issues within the report is a change in the way in which collision data is classified. That is set out within the report and does have an impact on the trend data that we've talked about. So I just wanted to kind of pull that out at the beginning. So the report itself covers those confirmed casualty statistics. It's got an overview of our approach to improving road safety, the work that we're doing, both within the County Council and also as part of the Leicestershire and Rutland Road Safety Partnership. And as you said, Chair, I'm really pleased to welcome our colleagues from the police along today. I'm really grateful for their time and hopefully as demonstrating our joint working. I'll hand over to Graham for a bit of an introduction to that overview of that work that we do as well in a moment. I think I'm always really conscious when I bring this report to you and talk about performance. I think we all agree that any collisions that result in people being killed or seriously injured is too many collisions. But in the context of sort of trends over time, in 2024 we recorded 942 total casualties, which are low in the context of ongoing records. But we are conscious that the killed and seriously injured figures on the local road network we are sort of struggling to get those numbers much lower, and they are a focus of our work, which you'll see in the report. Also, that killed and seriously injured figures are particularly impacted by this change in reporting that I was talking about, where the report is now trying to be more consistent by recording the type of injury that occurs as opposed to an assessment of severity. So in reporting, you will select the injury that occurs rather than classifying it yourself. This will take some time then to sort of follow through into the figures. And what the figures that we've used are what's called adjusted figures to kind of represent the difference between the old reporting and the new reporting. That's set out in more detail in the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that as well. So the report also sets out the national context and highlights that government launched its new road safety strategy in January 2026. That affirms the safe system approach that we are operating here in Leicestershire. We introduced a road safety strategy that reflected that safe systems approach in June 2024, and those zero death targets in Britain's Road aligns with our own ambitions here in the county as well, and across the partnership. So we've also set out our approach to casualty reduction, so the initiatives and the programmes that we're working on, and we're, as a partnership and as a highway authority, remain focused on evidence-led initiatives as well, and we'll probably, I imagine, in discussion come on to talk about some of the challenges around identifying the right trends and interventions to make in this area as well. But the report covers things that we do on cluster sites, where we've looked at rural route initiatives, so where we're focusing on higher risk A and B roads, how we try and manage speed, how we work with communities on education and behaviour change. And again, the Road Safety Partnership, which we're part of, delivered £200,000 of projects last year, very targeted on those campaigns around drink and drug driving. And we've also picked up things that are emerging risks as well, things like e-scooters and e-bikes as well. So the report it's got a conclusion section, highlights that roads are statistically safer now than they were 10 or 20 years ago, but that rate of improvement has slowed. And there's a number of factors in that improvement, including things like improvements in technology, the safety of vehicles. And I think we are finding it, I think it's fair to say, Graham, aren't we, more complex and more difficult to identify trends and causes that there's an obvious thing to do about. So there's a lot of information that we do go through. We work as a partnership to see if there's things that we can be doing, but I think it is becoming more challenging to bring those numbers down. And I hope Matt doesn't mind me mentioning that he's newly joined to Leicester and Rutland Road Safety Partnership, and bringing new ideas as well, and anything we can take and learning from down the country, we'll be taking advantage of his knowledge as well to try and tackle some of those challenges. So the report just highlights that we are continuing to work to our strategy, working collaboratively, using the data that we've got, working towards those targets that are ambitious, to 40% reduction by 2035, and that we can reduce casualties and the impact of those across Leicestershire by working together. So because we've got quite a comprehensive report, because Graham's here, if it's okay, I will end there, just ask if there's any questions for me, and then I will hand over to Graham if that's okay with you, Chair.
Yes, I would normally ask Mr. Tilbury first, but I'm going to suggest that you wait until the end of the report. Is that good? Has anybody got any other questions in the meantime? Yes, Mr. Lovegrove, please.
Thank you, Jana. A very comprehensive report we've got in front of us. I realise that highways improvements need to be done on a statistical basis, and minor injuries, serious injuries, or deaths. Just trying to think whether or not something, because I get quite a lot of requests for safety improvements from local residents, because there hasn't been serious injuries or deaths, they can't do any road improvements. And so I didn't know whether there's a mechanism maybe verified through a parish council that could add some weight to potential highways danger areas. Like Adam came out to Bottisford to look at a dangerous S-bend and things, because local knowledge is powerful, but not every resident, obviously, because everybody has their own view, but something verified through the local community might add some weight as well, so we can avoid serious injuries and deaths in the first place. Thank you.
Yes, that's something which has actually frustrated me on many occasions, when you report a dangerous situation and you hear back, oh, no, you've been killed on it yet. Well, I always thought prevention was better than cure. Jana.
No, I can absolutely understand both your points on there, and it is very difficult. I mean, there is something about managing and having a criteria to do that. What I would say is we are now in a position to be able to develop 4-year programmes with the local transport grant money that is intended for more local prioritised schemes. So what I would say is we've obviously got records of queries that have been made to us, and also we'll consider anything that can be done that is raised to us. We have a look at that. I don't want to make promise on particular on instances, and I know what you're saying about kind of finding a way to refine that that local intelligence of the area being useful, but also being verified so that we can make it standard. I don't know quite how we would work, but I'm happy to give that some consideration as well as part of building the programme going forward. It's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Innes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I notice a piece in the report about car cruising. I just have this real concern that once we open MMDR, there are some nice sweeping roads that are going to be very popular with some of our car cruisers, if that's what they're called. I'm just wondering if there's been consideration given to how we might stop it before it happens, because I can imagine there will be a few people getting very excited about those nice sweeping curves that are being produced. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Shannon.
Well, I think Pat and I would need it to stop raining before they can get too excited. So another couple of days sunshine would be good. No, absolutely take your point. I mean, those of us familiar with the south of the county, there are a couple of sort of roads there, aren't they, that have got a similar thing. So there's a couple of processes we'll go through in terms of our stage 3 safety audits and assessments before we open the road. Antisocial behaviour, if I can call cruise that, was taken into account in some of the design specs. So, for instance, we didn't include lay-bys to sort of facilitate or supporting people getting out there and doing that kind of thing as part of the design. And we will probably it will be Graham in the police and his team that we'll have a talk to about how we practically enforce if there are any issues on opening as well. I think essentially also we've got to probably see what happens when we open and react to that situation as well. But it has been considered as part of the design process, and we will be working together if there are any issues.
Any other questions? Right, then I believe it's over to you, Graham. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors and officers, and thank you very much for inviting myself and Matt Chester, who's the manager of the Road Safety Unit, here this afternoon. I'll cover as many of the police aspects as I possibly can, including a mention on cruising, because I know that's something that's cropping up all the time. So if you can bear with me, please, and ask me any questions at the end, I would be obliged. Once I've finished, I'm going to hand over to Matt to talk about the road safety unit, speeding, etc. And then I've just got one or two concluding comments, Chair, when Matt has finished. I want to start by just giving an overview of the Road Safety Partnership that Jana has already mentioned. We launched the Road Safety Partnership at Force Headquarters in the mid-90s. So, you know, we've been going now for a good 30 years looking at all road safety issues. The Road Safety Partnership consists of a partnership board which Jana chairs, and that looks after the governance for the Road Safety Unit and also the directives on which way we're going with road safety for the following year. Under the partnership board is a management team, and the management team is something I sit on, and we deal with the day-to-day work in road safety and decide where we're putting our resources, emerging issues, and what we're going to do about it, and I'll speak about that in a moment. We have got 3 working groups. We've got a publicity officer, comms officer, who deals with the media full-time on a day-to-day basis, including the emerging social media. We have a data group, again, Jan has mentioned it this morning. Officers at the force go to every injury, accident, as I'm sure you're aware, fills in the necessary details. They come to County Hall, and then we go through the data and start looking at, again, emerging issues. What can we do about this? And finally, the road safety unit, which is Matt's baby, that also includes the speed awareness workshops, where drivers opt for, instead of taking the 3 points on their driving licenses. I can just mention, just so that members know, the Road Safety Partnership includes members from all 3 of the emergency services, all 3 of the local authorities, the National Health Service, and also National Highways, that deal with everything that's happening now on our motorways and trunk roads. And we have a very close knit relationship together, collaborating on road safety. And I think it works very well. As far as the board's concerned, Jana chairs, every year we look to what we can bid for from the board in terms of launching road safety projects. And last year we were awarded, members were awarded £200,000 to deliver road safety initiatives across the force area. And as I said earlier, though that money is raised, just so everybody knows, by people attending the speed awareness courses. Projects last year included social media campaigns, subsidised motorcycle training, and we had a lot of motorcyclists killed last year. The police Fatal 4 operations, which I'm going to mention in a second and just let you know what they're about. The Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Services initiatives, they're doing an awful lot now on road safety issues, as I'm sure everybody knows. And finally, the Road Safety Warning Zone in Leicester, which is an excellent warning zone. It sees through at least 10,000 children every year as far as safety is concerned. And in the warning zone are several road safety inputs. So we do spend a little bit of money on that as well. As far as the data group's concerned, the data group produce a report for the board every year to direct members as to where we should be looking at as a priority. And again this year, our vulnerable road users are top of the list. They include young and elderly drivers, motorcyclists, as I say, we've got a problem there, pedal cyclists, pedestrians and horse riders. They are our vulnerable group, so we will be prioritising those as the year goes on. We have an ongoing campaign running called Share the Road. I hope some of you have heard about it. We're going to continue with that through 2026 and try and get drivers of all motor vehicles to actually respect these groups when they're travelling around on the road. I just want to mention briefly the Police Neighbourhood Link website, which probably most of you have heard of. We have got several thousand members of the public signed up to the Neighbourhood Link. And I mention it because members of the public can actually get a message to us, to the police, straight away if anything is happening in their area that smacks of road safety, that we can actually get on with straight away without going through, you know, the old systems. We place a lot of emphasis on that, and of course through that system we get speeding complaints, we get complaints of car cruising. That sorry, I can't read your name, councillor. Yeah, okay, Andrew. Yeah, that has just been mentioned. The movement of heavy goods vehicles through our weight restricted area and vehicle obstruction, that type of thing. So it's a good website that we use. I want to briefly mention, Chair, the state of casualties. I liaise with the other 4 forces in this region for road safety matters. Derbyshire, Lincolnshire, etc. And last year, we recorded 151 fatalities. The good news is, if there is any good news when you're talking about fatalities, is that we had a drop of 37 fatalities across the eastern region of the country. A little bit of bad news for Leicestershire, because we suffered a rise of 3 fatalities from 28 in 24 to 31 last year. So it just gives you some idea of how many people are still getting killed on our roads. Janice touched on it already, and I'll mention it later on, but we're still talking about 400 plus life-changing injuries on top of the fatalities. And you probably heard on the media yesterday, we had a 12-year-old girl badly injured in Hinckley. So, you know, these things are happening every day. We've got to try our very best to get that number down. I'm not going to go through the RTC numbers for all the districts. I know you've got it in your notes. We've got all that data and it's all available for people to use. As far as the police is concerned, all this data that comes from the officers on the scene is all available for them to give to their neighbourhood teams through the computer systems that we've got. Also on enforcement, I just want to mention again our Fatal 4 operation. Some of you might not know much about it, but we run Fatal 4 operations to try and change driver behaviour throughout the whole of the force area. And we're running at least two every month. Officers from the road policing unit, local officers, our special constables, and up to 4 volunteers help us with the Fatal 4 operations. The volunteers act as spotters for people who are committing offences. The 4 offences we're talking about is drink and drug driving. And if I tell you that on average we are arresting still, after all the publicity, we are arresting 100 drivers every month for drink drug driving. We've got a major issue emerging, not just in Leicestershire, but across the country, of drug driving. Drug driving is going up, and we almost got to the stage where there's as many people being arrested for drug driving as there is for drink driving. So it's a major issue for JANA and for the Road Safety Partnership. It's a challenging one for us. The other 3 are the non-use of the seatbelt. Again, after pushing this hard for 30 years, we've still got drivers who don't use the seatbelt. Non-use of the seatbelt turns what would have been a non-injury accident or a slight accident into a fatality or whatever if people don't use the belt and end up on the windscreen. It's a major problem. And the other problem, I know you probably know what I'm going to mention, is distraction by use of the mobile phone. Despite the fact there's 6 points allocated to an offence of a mobile phone, we've still got lots of drivers out there that's on the mobile phone. And you can see it every day when you're out there. We dealt with 439 on the Fatal 4s last year, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And finally, the final element to the Fatal 4 is in Matt's area, which is speed. Still a major problem for road safety. I'll let Matt talk about that in a moment. I want to move on now briefly to our Community Speed Watch programme, which is run by Leicestershire County Council in collaboration with Leicestershire Police. You probably know, and we've ran it successfully now for over 20 years. Leicestershire County Council, in touch with the parishes, put a programme together. They're doing it at the moment, 17 or 18 schemes for 2026. They train the volunteers that go out with a speed gun on the sites. I know you've seen them with the yellow coats, taking the numbers of drivers who are speeding. That all comes into my office, and we send out the warning letters from force headquarters. We have got a system whereby for people who are abusing the community support volunteers, we have got a system where we pick that up and a police officer will go around and knock on somebody's door and say, you know, if you don't stop this, you're gonna be in big trouble. The other thing I want to mention about Community Speed Watch is that to give additional reassurance to the volunteers that's run the scheme, the Road Safety Unit mobile vans will spend some time at those sites after the main business has concluded. I want to mention briefly your weight restricted zones, because I know councillors do get a lot of problems with weight restricted zones, and we get the emails coming into our office. We've got many weight restricted zones across the force area, and again, most of the non-compliance is picked up by residents. They go to the county council and they're forwarded onto my office, so that we know which hauliers are actually going through the weight restricted areas. We try to deal with it proactively. That's how we try to do it, by contacting the hauliers by telephone and giving them advice. If we get an area in the force area which is really bad for abuse, then we do get the local officers and the road policing unit to take some action at the site, stop some of the drivers and issue some enforcement business. Please bear in mind that drivers can go through the weight restricted zones to either pick up or collect goods. So we've just got to make sure that they're not doing that before we give any tickets out. Just a brief mention on a relatively new unit called the Safer Roads team that we launched 5 years ago. That's made up of special constables who come in and deal with road safety and traffic problems across the force. 5 years ago, the Road Safety Board very generously allocated enough money for us to have a dedicated car for the Safer Roads team, which is at force headquarters with the road policing unit, and they make excellent use of it. So we're very pleased that we've got the Safer Roads team. Any of the complaints that come in from members of the public, we always send to their website so that they've got a note of it, whatever that is. I want to mention something that's close to everybody's hearts at the moment, which is e-scooters and e-bikes. There's a lot of problems out there with both these that the police are trying to tackle, but it's not one that we've got a silver bullet for. You probably were aware that we, Leicestershire, did not take part in the government trials a couple of years ago. So every e-scooter that you see on the road is actually illegal out there. It's illegal. They can only use them on private premises. We started off with a 2-hit policy. First stop, we warn the rider that you cannot use that scooter on a public road. Put it on the computer. If it was stopped again, then that scooter would be confiscated. We ran that for about 12 months. But last year, we moved into a 1-hit policy whereby the officer could confiscate that machine straight away without any warning, and we did that. And so far, the figures I've got so far, it looks like we took something like 500 to 600 off the roads last year. So, you know, it's probably only a nibble and people are still using them. But of course, we get casualties with scooters, we get scooters hitting pedestrians, etc., etc. And I'm sure you're aware of that. The problem is emerging with e-bikes. E-bikes are being altered to make the vehicles that should only be going at 15 miles an hour. They're being altered so that they can go at 30 and 40 miles an hour. I'm sure you get complaints on this. And again, we're whipping those off the road as well and taking them off as fast as we can. Very briefly, the movement of abnormal loads. You might wonder why I'm mentioning it. There's two reasons. One is, you probably know that loads that are over a certain height, I think it's 16 feet 6 or 17 feet, have got to go through these roads in Leicestershire. All those roads have been worked out with Leicestershire County Council. We don't have many, but unfortunately we have to put these high loads through the county. They will always be escorted by the police if that happens. But if you get any complaints, please refer them to my office and we'll take them up. The other thing I want to mention on loads, again, you probably know that the infrastructure for High Speed 2 from London to Birmingham is being manufactured at Melton Mowbray. Everything is coming out of Melton Mowbray. The loads which are of a certain length or weight are all escorted by the roads policing unit. We've got a lot moving at the moment and a lot more in the spring, just so that people know. So far, I've not received any complaints from members of the public about the movements of those loads. So, you know, we do take these things seriously. And finally, before I hand over to Matt, I just want to briefly mention car cruising, because it's a major problem, not just for our force, but for all forces. And sometimes we have up to 50 or 100 vehicles involved in these cruises. We had one last weekend, some of you may have heard about it, with people racing around from place to place. We are tackling it the best we can. I know you know that this stuff happens spontaneously, so we can't put an operation together and say we're going to have 6 police officers there. It all happens spontaneously, and they say, yes, we'll meet at so-and-so. And then half an hour later, they shoot off and meet somewhere else. All the sites we've got on record. What I can tell you is that we've purchased several new devices to tackle this, to tackle moving cars with cameras, and we can deal with any offences retrospectively. So that might just be putting the wind up one or two that decide to come into Leicestershire. But at least you know that we are onto it. I'll stop there, Mr. Chairman, unless somebody wants to ask me any questions before I hand over to Matt.
Thank you very much, Graham. Are there any questions at this juncture? Then I welcome Matt to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Chair. I will be very brief. As Janet has mentioned, I'm relatively new to the Road Safety Unit in Leicestershire. I'm responsible for the safety camera system that runs across Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland. And we have a comprehensive system of both fixed and mobile safety camera devices that we deploy based on the set criteria that Jana referred to. And obviously enforcement is, very much part of our approach in conjunction with engineering and education. So enforcement forms part of that wider strategy. For members' information, we issue approximately 70,000 notices for intended prosecution, both for speed, for not complying with red lights at traffic lights, and for speed and red X on the motorways. We have 2 cameras on the motorway, so we enforce that on behalf of National Highways. We are seeing actually an increase, an improvement in compliance around speed, and that's obviously something that is very welcome. Speed still, accounts for a large proportion when you look at the factors involved in road traffic collisions, but we are seeing that improve. But as has been already articulated both by Jana and by Graham, the impact, we're not seeing that sort of flow through in terms of the impact, and if we measured that by our numbers around killed and seriously injured. So we're, part of my role really, I'm looking to review our enforcement strategy. So this is both, in terms of improving our detection, our ability to detect, and our ability to deter. Look at issues around where what the criteria is. So we are looking to review the criteria as well, with looking at models around risk and harm. So again, I think that reflects some of the questions that we've already heard as well. So modelling, based on our data about how we can best do that. But as with anything, prevention is very difficult to measure and to monitor. So we just need to be careful about how we do that. And that's not to raise expectations. It is something that we're looking at here. Again, as Graham's referenced, in terms of the other factors that we can use our camera technology for, we're looking at the potential to pilot new, current and emerging technologies, the use of artificial intelligence to be able to identify non-compliance with things like seat belts, use of mobile phones as well. And I think that's, just sort of reflecting, actually we need, if we carry on doing the same thing, we're going to continue to flatline. We need to do something different. We need to continually improve and draw on, the technologies that's out there. And my team are looking to, increase our visibility, as part of that deter factor in terms of the enforcement strategy. So making sure that we're being visible on the roads, and I suppose less predictable about where we'll be, certainly on the mobile enforcement vans. That's all I wanted to say, really. I'm happy to take any questions either now or at a later date. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tilbury.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Jana, for the extensive report. It's good to know that road traffic danger is going down. I had a couple of questions for the police. You've answered them in some ways, but with the e-scooters and e-bikes, which was one of the questions you actually answered, a lot of people still don't know the rules and they don't know that all should be banned, especially near me, because we're on the border where in Nottinghamshire some e-scooters are allowed. I just thought it may be an idea if we could do like a new marketing campaign like schools, just to make them aware that they are all banned, because you see so many of them around in my neck of the woods. That's my first question. And the second question is about drug driving. I read a report saying, unlike drink driving, which are the majority are late at night or early evening, drug driving, there's like now an epidemic of people smoking them on the way into work, like cannabis, which is worrying to say the least. What we're doing really to combat that, and I know you mentioned you've got AI and technology, but my point of view is really we just need more beat bobbies, because once you've got the beat bobbies out, speeding decreases and social behaviour decreases, and people wouldn't essentially smoke cannabis with the window open. And if you could just answer those questions, please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, who would like to answer that first? Thank you. Would you like to put
some of what you said, but I heard the part about the drink drug driving. When we ran the Christmas campaign for 32 days, we actually arrested people every hour of the 24-hour period. It's not, like you say, it's not just people at 1 and 2 in the morning. People are over the limit early on after a night out, and they stay over the limit for hours and hours and hours. I don't know what the plans are going to be to tackle the drug driving other than what we do at the moment, and that's what the partnership's all about. We've got to come up with new initiatives, new ideas. But what I can say is that the force is trying hard to build up the manpower this year, as you probably know, and if that comes off, we're hoping to increase the numbers in the roads policing unit that tackle these issues. So that's the good news, provided we can get the resources to put out there, stop more drivers and get more drivers through the system. But as I say, at the moment, we're arresting 100 already, and during December we arrested 140 during the campaign. So it's a major issue, and again, we've got no silver bullet for it. It's not just locally in Leicestershire, it's the same across the whole of the United Kingdom. It's a challenging problem.
Yes, Jana.
Sorry, Chair, if I can just briefly add to what Graham said. As I said, from the enforcement side, we are working on that. I think just in terms of campaigns on e-scooters, we'll pick that up as part of our programme. We have a programme of different media campaigns or engagement. So, and we've got a meeting coming up, haven't we?
I think it's on this year's
programme. So we'll report back to you on that and the progress with it. Just on the drug driving, just again to let Mr. Tilbury and Scrutiny know, we are also looking at kind of what motivates people to behave that way, so that public health colleagues join us on the partnership. They've got some good data around sort of risk-taking behaviour in general, how we might interact with groups that are more likely to behave in risky manner, why people would be taking those risks in the first place. What we glean from that will feed in then to enforcement and also to any kind of behaviour change or campaign we can do. But and we have had sessions in the partnership itself and the management group around what we can do. I personally was quite surprised to see the range of people involved in that risk-taking behaviour. You know, it's not just one age group, it's not just one demographic, which I suppose is more worrying and more difficult to tackle. So it is something that's definitely high on our radar, and I think you know, it's something that we would improve road safety if we could you know, have less people obviously behaving in that way. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Yes, I remember that when Australia tightened up their drink driving laws, they stopped breathalyzing people at night. They breathalyzed them in the morning going to work because there was such a low allowable level. They were catching them, as you suggested, on the way in. Now, it's interesting that you say about it being across an age range. I noticed with the graphs you've produced there, a number of graphs, and there seems to be no pattern between them. They're completely sporadic. There's no commonality, which must make the job a lot harder.
Can just quickly, Chair, yeah, there's something that we've talked about in the partnership, and I think some of that is because when we're now looking at the killed and serious injured numbers, they are, from a statistical point of view, quite a low number. Obviously, you know, far too many for what we want to achieve. So it does make the variations in year, month to month difficult, you know, to see those patterns in. We did have, and you'll see on one of the appendices, apologies, I can't remember exactly what that's a reference to our road safety strategy. One of the appendices has got some additional research that we've undertaken as a partnership. And we've looked at things like, we've noticed as officers that there are what feel like a significant number of single vehicle collisions happening. The instinct there would be, is it speed, is it night, is it perhaps less experienced drivers? But even when we looked at that, the difficulty in pulling out a group to kind of work with to reduce that, because there wasn't a sort of discernible trend in those. Although younger drivers are disproportionately represented in that group compared to the number of licence holders. So we are definitely trying to do that, but I think it is making, I think Graham, you know, in his years of experience of it, sort of said to me, I think the people that we can influence with the messages we've sort of cracked that. We're now into a hardcore group that we need to maybe do something different with, which Matt's talked about.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Now we come back to members' questions. Mr. Innes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really happy to see that the investment in road safety education has been put back in, which I would endorse, and I guess that goes to the high schools, etc. I should declare an interest that I have been on a driver education workshop, and some of the training that goes as a result of that does, I mean, I hope that's shown to some of the older high school kids, because it's some of the pictures that I've seen are very thought-provoking. I guess funding's always an issue, but for me, it's top priority that we make sure that we reduce the number of people that are killed. I have one bugbear, and maybe you guys can help me with this, and that's red light hopping. I think it's on a massive increase. Are we actually doing something to address that? Because I don't see a set of traffic lights now where somebody's just gone through. It's almost on a daily basis I see it, and I'd be very interested to know how that's being addressed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, red light running is a perennial problem. Anecdotally, we're hearing exactly what you're suggesting as well. It's one of those areas where we're looking to build our evidence base, because again, we can't put cameras on every lamppost. You know, we haven't got the funding, we haven't got the resources to be able to do that, back office, etc., etc. But you know, please be rest assured that is something that we've only recently we've been looking at as part of the enforcement strategy that I refer to, detect and deter, and that's what we're looking to achieve. But yeah, red light running is very much up there. But yeah, we need to build our evidence base going forward.
Yeah, I've taken the attitude these days, especially when driving around the city, if I'm waiting at a red light, when it turns green, I take my breath and then go, because somebody's likely to come shooting across. But that's my personal opinion. Mr. Glasgrove, please.
Sorry,
Oh.
Can I just say again, sort of add, you know, enforcement is part of this picture. Again, you know, as Jan has sort of referred to, we're looking at actually how do we change behaviour. That's a really important thing. Enforcement is probably, you know, possibly our last resort, but you know, it is an important arm that we want to address.
Apologies to Mr. Lovegrove. I'm just going to add a personal comment in on there, because it does follow on, I think. I've heard of Operation Snap, where you send in videos off your dash cam of naughty drivers. And my personal experience is the worst reception I get is from the Leicestershire Constabulary. All the others that I've used have been very responsive, but not Leicestershire. And so the people running the red lights, or I think are running red lights, I don't bother reporting because I don't get that response. I don't know if it's fair for you to comment on that or take it away with you.
Yeah, I think both me and Graham will be able to take that away. But again, part of our plans going forward, albeit you know they're still in their infancy, is to improve how we can get that sort of community concern into our systems, you know, to build up that evidence base, and that's very much an arm. So there will be things that we will start to do now, such as you know improve that opportunity to report through our partnership website. So simple form there. We'd take away the issue around reporting to the police, because I don't think Leicestershire Police are part of Operation Snap.
Oh, that might be
part of the problem. You can submit, but it's not through that particular system. But again, something that we can take away.
Jolly good. My apologies, Councillor Lovegrove.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, Graham. I always like to hear you speak. Very professional, very measured, and very detailed. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Three very quick things. One is about the speed awareness course. I've been there as well. And it's just whether there was a match up with the theory test that learner drivers take, because I found that speed awareness course very useful. And whether the material that's in there is also replicated in particularly the theory course that learner drivers, I don't know whether that's in there or not. The second one is, I'm sorry if I missed it in the report, serious injuries and fatalities we want less of all of the time, but you talked about the drug and drink problem. Was there a statistic in there of the fatalities and serious injuries that were because of drink and drugs?
Microphone, please, Graham.
Sorry. I can't give you the local figures, but nationally in 2024, we've not got the 25 figures yet, there was around 260 deaths as a direct result of drink driving nationally. And again, later on this year, we will get the 25 statistics, but there's every indication it will be as bad. So it's quite a major problem.
Yes, Jana, please.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, everybody. I think the just to say in the appendix E, yeah, so thank you. There's a breakdown of causation factors in there, and actually alcohol and drugs are separated out as well. So where they're having the impact on the collisions, that's in that report there, and that's broken down, I think, by you can see it at county level out of the partnership as well. But if you have any questions on that report, let me know.
Thank you. And then the last point was just an observational point. Community speed watches are excellent. It's just a shame that the volunteers have to wear high vis like they do. It's a shame we can't just do it a bit incognito, because drivers coming towards, because there's a speed problem in a village, they take all of that training, they get the county council involved, the police involved, and they stand there sticking out like sore thumbs, and everybody obeys the speed limits, and they don't catch many. So it'd be great to do it a little bit more incognito to see a real picture of what the speeding problem is. Thank you.
Yes, Jana.
Just very quickly, Chair. I think that probably you won't catch me kind of recommending people out in high without high vis, because Pat would be on to me. But what we are looking at is whether technology might be, so you don't have to put, because I know that there are probably communities that would like speed watch, but again, it's difficult to get volunteers, isn't it? I know sometimes they're not always treated politely, or there's a fear of that. So that is something that we'll consider as we come through from the partnership.
Yes, I would agree with that comment. I remember as a town councillor one night, I was walking around the town with an infrared gun, taking thermal images of houses to see how thermally efficient they were. And it's amazing the number of people that braked heavily on that road, and we weren't in high vis either. So I can actually agree with that comment. I'm sorry if it's been so long, Mr. Mulaney.
No worries. Thank you, Chairman. It was really just to refer to Graham mentioned earlier about a tragic accident in Hinckley yesterday, and obviously we hope the victim recovers soon. My understanding is that it was an incident off Leicester Road through Hinckley, and that is a road that has had a history of some issues to with speeding and dangerous driving. I've raised issues about Leicester Road previously, so hopefully we can have another look at that and see what measures can be taken to obviously try and prevent further sort of tragic incidents happening.
Yes, thanks for that. It's we're going through the usual detailed investigation, and if there's any issues for the highways themselves, we'll obviously be taking it up with the Leicestershire County Council. But thank you. It is a tragic accident.
Oh, Jana, yes, sorry.
Sorry, I know we've taken up lots of time on this agenda. I just wanted to reassure members as well that when an incident like that does happen, there's a very quick collection of officers from the emergency services and ourselves to see if there's any immediate sort of lessons learned that could be implemented. Then there's the detailed report, and the conclusions from that, like you say, would work with the Highway Authority or others as well. So when something like that does happen, we don't wait for the confirmed statistics or for the final report before we get together and just look at those immediate factors as well. So I just wanted to reassure members on that point.
Lovely, thank you very much. Dr. Bloxham, I think you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it comes back to the question earlier about local knowledge when we're putting in traffic safety measures and things. And as councillors, people come and tell us about these issues, and they know the area best, and we request them, but the stats say no one's died there yet, so we can't get them done and things. And there's some things that seem very, very minor. So one, I've just pulled up the email here. I was just after sort of about 50 metres of double yellow lines on a busy road so that people can pull out without people parking in the way and stuff. And then the response comes back that they would have to do a full traffic regulation order, which involves 43 statutory steps, carries an associated cost of 7,500, which presumably is why it's so hard to get these done. Is there any way we can, I mean, statutory steps sounds like we can't do anything about it, but is there any way to make that process easier so that we can get more of these things done?
In terms of the statutory process and then it being enforceable, there isn't really an alternative. It's kind of that process or nothing. I don't know if it's strictly relevant to your situation. I think the only other thing I can think of that is relevant is as I was going to say, we're doing the work with parishes and local communities about sort of if there's what we might term inconsiderate parking or where that is causing a problem. We're able to kind of encourage people, perhaps, you know, they're busy, didn't realise the impact, sort of let them know there. So we do that sort of informal work. I think in terms of having a measure in the highway, they either have to be compliant or not.
So how would that informal process work? I mean, would you not need somebody standing there telling people not to park there or something?
It's usually by a sort of postcard type. I think it's like a template that we provide, isn't it? Sorry, Anne.
What, you would give that to the residents to put on them?
To the parish council, to the people that are parking there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, if I could, Chair, just Jenna's absolutely right. It's an initiative we work with willing parish councils, and we can give them a template. It's printed out. It's basically, you know, as Jenna said, a postcard type thing. So the parish councils can go around, and if there's an issue, put it under somebody's windscreen just to say, you know, this is inconsiderate parking. Have you considered, you know, some of the impacts, etc. Exactly that. It is for parishes who tend to, the ones that come forward tend to have, you know, maybe as your instance, I'm not familiar with it, you know, kind of known issue in their area, and for whatever reason we can't do anything, or it's not maybe the right measure, but actually this is a kind of more informal, low-key way to hopefully try and make, and it does tend to be residents or even visitors who come regularly to that area a bit more aware and a bit more considerate in how they are parking, driving, etc. in that area.
Thank you, Anne. Okay. Oh, sorry, we do have another question there, Mrs. Seaton. Sorry.
Thank you. And this really, through the chair, is for Anne. I'm jumping on that straight away. I'm a very active parish councillor, and I was part of the Highways Forum when we were discussing that, and there was some discussion towards the parish councils having more of an impact on offences like hedges and stones on the path, etc. and so on. So I was completely unaware that it was rolled out now, and our parish council has got no idea. So how is that? How was that?
We'll get onto that. It has been relatively recently,
Yeah.
you know, but somebody did literally came into my office and handed me here's what it looks like. So I know it is very relatively, you know, it's very recent, but I'll make sure I'll get onto them to make sure that you're in the loop and, you know, we've covered everybody else. Because as you say, I think it arose originally, not so much from the parking side, more from the vegetation, as you say, overgrown hedges. So parish could just pop through somebody's letter box, you know, etc. You know, could you cut back your hedge, etc. It's causing us issues. I'll get onto that. It has been literally in the last month or so, I would say. So apologies that you don't know about it yet, but I'll get onto that one. No, Jana's reminding me it was done as a pilot originally, so I don't know whether we'd agreed a small sample on that. We'll find out and update you.
No, it is very, very dangerous to get a woman of my age excited, and how sad is that I'm excited by a postcard that I can give. I have not long, probably 3 hours ago, pressed send, complaining about pebbles on a path. And I went to call and there wasn't anybody in. People don't answer the doors these days, especially if it's a scary woman standing there. And I would have loved to have been able to put a postcard through the door and give them. So yes, please, thank you very much.
Might I ask that you circulate to all the members of the committee, please?
Chair, we'll certainly update the position for all of the committee members.
Thank you very much. Mr. Innes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me come back in. I've just been musing about the MMDR, which is, I understand, the largest ever capital project the Leicestershire County Council. And I think the question I asked about this cruising and everything, I don't know about you, Mr. Lovergrove, but we just don't want any bad press, bad thing. So I think I would really like maybe the Melton councillors to be kept informed of what action is going to be taken in respect of this, because I think action's quite prevention again is better than taking the action afterwards. So I think it's worth putting some thought into this. That was just a point I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Will
John,
do.
please.
I was just going to say, will do.
Wonderful. I thought you would. Okay, any more questions on this item? Good. Then we shall move on to number 9, the Environment and Transport 2026-27 Highways and Transport Capital Programme and Works Programme. Now, Mrs. Carruthers is to deliver this, and you will see in front of you a printout because the original copy that was sent through had some of it missing. So one of those has been put in front of everybody. I hope. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. I mean, you're perfectly welcome to stay. I take that as a no.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, you're right for me to go. Thank you very much. And just, I was going to start with an apology. Yes, in the online pack that you received, unfortunately, some kind of glitch and there was only half a table has appeared. So it will be, I think it has been put online now, but you've got a paper copy in front of you. This is Appendix A that sits with this report, which basically sets out the Highways and Transport Capital and Works Programme for 26-27, but gives you a feel for the funding we've got over the 4-year MTFS period as well. And this is coming to you to seek your comments before going to Cabinet later in the month for approval, so we can get on with it and deliver it come April. The programme's been developed in line with national policy and local policy, which you'd fully expect, and it's set within the context of the MTFS funding envelope we have that was approved by the County Council last month. A bit of wider context before you get into a bit of detail. We've developed the programme in full light of our existing financial situation. You know, it's very tough for local government, isn't it? We are limited, but there's loads we'd want to do for highways and transport. However, we are constrained by the amount of funding we have in order to resource that work. We're also seeing increasing demand for highways and transport improvements, maintenance, all sorts of aspects of our work arising from the growth agenda. Both the population growth, housing, employment growth, all creates greater demand in terms of the highways and transport service that we provide. And also we're seeing more and more impacts from a changing climate. I don't need to mention rain recently, do I? There is some good news. Let's look at some good news as well. Government have, for the first time ever, given us 4-year funding allocations. It's something the sector has lobbied on for years and years and years, and we have now, for the first time ever, got that. Prior to this, we get a 1-year annual allocation of funding. Now you might think, well, you know, government will give you funding, you know, the following year, second, third year, etc. But actually, where the difference is, it means we have got confidence in planning programs over more than 1 year, because you'll appreciate our finance colleagues aren't keen on us signing up contracts for 3, 4, 5 years or more if we don't know we've got definitely got the funding. It also allows us to be far more effective with our money, rather than in some cases, for instance, when government have had extra money and they've maybe given us some more in February and told us to spend it, we can't spend it on some treatments because we haven't done the pre-work to it, etc., etc. If we've got a 4-year horizon, we can plan, procure and deliver far more effectively. So that's really good news. They've given us 4-year capital allocations and 3 years revenue, just the way Treasury works. And it's made up of 2 elements. They've actually put it in what they call consolidated funding pot, but there's actually 2 aspects to it. The first is the integrated transport funding element, and that covers maintenance funding, active travel, so that's walking, cycling, wheeling. The Levi funding, that's the local, it's the EV infrastructure charging funding that we've got from government, as well as another element that's called the local transport grant fund, and that can be spent on maintenance or transport improvements. Now, for the last few years, we've not had anything that's allowed us to deliver small-scale improvements out there. There hasn't really been funding allocated, whereas they have allocated funding now. So that's one element of the consolidated pot. The other element is all things bus. It's a bus service fund, and there's 2 aspects to that, but basically that funding has to be spent on things that will deliver improvements for bus services and bus passengers. Okay. Table 1 and 2 early on in the report gives a breakdown of that funding we've got from DFT, and you'll see that over the 4 years we have 233 million capital and 18.5 million revenue funding. 54 million of that is allocated in the coming financial year, so 26-27. Overall, our capital programme for highways and transport, however, is 271 million over the 4-year period, as that includes funding that comes from LCC's own funding pots, as well as developer contributions. So that's the additional funding over and above the grant we've received from the Department of Transport. But as you'll appreciate, the vast majority of the funding is that grant funding from the Department of Transport. Of the total pot, 72 million is planned for spend in the coming year. To secure that Department for Transport funding, however, there's various requirements attached to it. Probably the most major one that maybe you'd be interested in, we have to submit a local transport delivery plan. Now, we have to submit this by the 20th of March, so it's not too far off. And they asked us, I think the thing we got, was it late December or early January we get told about this? So, we're working at pace on this. And we have to set out what we're delivering in the next financial year, so 26-27, and an idea of what we're delivering in the following 3 years so in total for the 4 years of funding. We have to follow that up in September with the final local transport delivery plan, so the detail of what we'll be spending this money on over the full 4-year period. I'm sure you'll appreciate that towards the back end of that will be more like things like programs of work, an allocation to cycling and walking, improvements, maintenance, etc., rather than the details of every precise scheme, because there's no way, we have that information at the moment. We will work that up over time. So we're also required to enter into a memorandum of understanding that covers various stipulations around that money to ensure that our delivery of the programme that we are proposing aligns to the local transport outcome framework, which has been developed by the Department of Transport. And that will become a subset of the government's wider outcomes framework for local government as well, so it'll be the transport aspect of that. So there's a whole host of new requirements in governance coming into place attached to that funding. Obviously, we're working at pace to get ourselves aligned with that, to make sure that we're complying and draw down that full funding. And on that aspect of it, Department for Transport has allocated what they call an incentive fund element. So an element of the funding that they're allocating will be held back unless we do meet their set criteria. And that's in relation to the maintenance allocation they've given us. And overall for us, that equates to 39 million of a total of 105 million allocated towards maintenance. So it's a sizable chunk. So it's certainly in our interest to make sure we are complying and we draw down that full amount of funding, which we will absolutely be working hard to do. To move towards implementing that, the Department for Transport provided ratings of all local authorities in January this year, and it was based on 3 criteria: road condition, the amount of capital you spend on maintenance, and your best practice. We were assessed as red. It was a red, amber, green. We were assessed in red, and actually when we've looked at it in detail, because they didn't, come to us and say this is what we think we assess you, there was no preamble, they just allocated it and announced those ratings. When we looked at it in detail, when we eventually received all their workings out in their framework, we have actually established that we had an underreporting of capital spend on maintenance, and actually we shouldn't have been allocated red. I have had meetings with DFT officials, and I've put that to them and sent it all in, and they are considering that. Now, whether they will reassess, I'm not sure. I'm waiting to hear on that. They haven't let me know. I have pressed them, but they're still considering. However, the outturn of that, I would say to you, is I am confident we will not be red next year when we're assessed, because we will not be underreporting our capital spend in regard to maintenance. Our approach to how we develop our capital programme set out in paragraph 26. There are the key principles we work to as to what gets in there, because as I say, and you all know, there's lots of demands out there for our work across our network, and it does represent a significant investment for the authority. We're clear that in relation to the growth agenda and the demands that this will make in our transport system, however, that this level of investment, while it is significant, isn't sufficient to do everything we want to do, and we know we need to do, and I'm sure you and your constituents would want us to do. So it is a challenging position. And aligned to that, in terms of our condition of our highway network, it has been in deterioration, and the funding we've got, while it is an increase on previous levels of allocation towards the maintenance aspect, it still will not. I cannot sit here and say to you we can get the network to the condition we'd all want it to be and we know it should be in. We will hopefully reduce the rate of decline. However, you've seen even just in the last few weeks how quickly the road network can deteriorate, because we've had a decade and more of underinvestment. That is coming home to roost. You add that to the climate we're seeing, the amount of rainfall, the freeze-thaw action, etc. And unfortunately, we're seeing the kind of scenario and the massive demand we have at the moment for, immediate pothole remediation work, etc. That will take a while to address in any satisfactory way. So we're on a journey. No different to many areas of the country, but I just wanted to make sure you were clear on that aspect of it. Although it's good news in terms of the level of investment, is not the answer to everything we'd want it to be the answer to. Other challenges we have is responding to and adapting our delivery and what we actually do. Because of that changing climate, we're having to change how we work, materials we use, our operational practice, and also reducing our forecast carbon emissions, because one of the criteria is we have to report under the DFT's quantifiable carbon guidance, and that is about how we're reducing our carbon emissions in everything we do. So that will be another challenge for us. The main areas of spend that we are proposing to spend for 26-27 are set out in paragraph 65, and that summary table in Appendix A that you've got in front of you gives you a good, good idea of those kind of main headline spend areas. The works programme, which is a bit more detail for you for 26-27, is included in Appendix B there, and I'm sure you might be interested in some of the things in your own particular areas. I will stop there, having given you that roundup, but happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. You must take a breath now and again. Mr. Tilbury.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a little question. Well, it's good that we've got multi-year DFT funding. That will give us the chance to plan ahead and do some funding and hopefully repair some of the issues on the roads we've got. Obviously, we've seen the state of the roads, and one thing I've picked out, which is quite worrying, is obviously we're going to get a 23% population growth from 2018 to 2043, and it's explained without significant investment. Obviously, we're going to struggle to deal with the extra capacity on our roads. Now, if we did have the investment and Leicestershire got fairer funding, how would we deal with the population increase? Like, have we got like a plan? Is it we're talking about bypasses, extra bus routes, public transport? Just so we've got a vision of what could be achieved if we did actually have the fairer funding. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Anne. I think it's just been something we've been talking a lot about recently, haven't it? So I was a bit keen there, Chair. Apologies. I think the answer to that is that's something that's in development. So you'll seen the cabinet report that we took in December 2025 that kind of set out some of the road infrastructure that we think is necessary to kind of deal with population housing growth over that time, and that's going to really form a bit of a basis for the spatial development strategy, which is planning on a regional basis. You start from where you want to look at the infrastructure. That'll also put in things like economic growth. We had a presentation today at the planning group that I went to around our energy plans, you know, and how that can be fed into. So I think to sort of deliver the level of infrastructure that we perhaps all envisage would be billions, but we do have a plan and vision for that. And also, you mentioned public transport there. I think I'm right in saying that same report, that was one of the things that we wanted to pull together on a regional basis. We worked with city colleagues as well on a joint plan before, and we would work with them to update that as well. So I don't think we've got something absolutely finished to hand to you, but that report in December definitely kicks off that thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Has any other member Dr. Bloxham?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just it's a fairly general question, I guess. It's, as a councillor, I'm kind of interested in the decisions that lead to the choices that are made for these big capital projects and things. I mean, is there any sort of democratic input into these, or are these just things that different highways engineers decide are the most important things? So to illustrate, you know, I've got an issue in my area, Crow Mills in South Wixton. Huge problems. It floods all the time. Pretty much every time it rains now, it floods. It's not part of the resilient road network, is it? I'm not sure why, because all the other roads into the city are. And when it does flood, the knock-on effect is that you get tailbacks on the roads that are on the resilient network. So it seems like it should be part of the resilient network. So the question is sort of how can that be reviewed? And I'm sure everyone else has got other areas that they would like reviewed as well. I suppose the smaller question is how do you measure how often do you keep a log of how often a particular road is shut and how many cars have been turned away from it and things when it floods? And if it can be reviewed, you know, how would we go about applying for grant funding from the government or something to get that issue fixed?
There's quite a few parameters coming into that. I mean, the first statement I would say in a general answer is we are evidence-based. So I know you were talking about a flood-related scheme there or a flood-related issue, you know, but generally for improvements or safety schemes, you know, on the back of the road safety item earlier is based on evidence. So, you know, is there an accident problem, etc., etc. In terms of things like a flood scheme and resilient network, you know, we've got to look at what's the cause of the flooding. And the priority, the hierarchy there is property affected first. Now, I think you mentioned Crow Mills there, was it? Did I catch you right? I don't think property is affected in that one. I'm slightly aware of that one, but I don't know all the details. So priority schemes, we'd look at ones where internal property flooding, people's houses are flooding. Then we have to look at what is the source of the flooding. Is it groundwater flooding? Is it river flooding? I think that's river, isn't it? That one there.
I'm talking about it as a highways issue because these are all highways issues. They're not necessarily flooding of house issues.
But we have to understand what the cause of the problem is to understand if there's a highway or any other type of solution, you know, to that flooding there. So we'd look at all that evidence there to then say, actually, can we make a case? One, is there a deliverable scheme? You know, things like, you know, depending on the river, if it's Environment Agency, I can't remember if it's Environment Agency that's involved there, you know, where does it come on their priorities if there's a continual problem there? And if it's quite low in the priorities, you know, it may not get funded anytime soon. If there are lots of evidence there to stack up and there is a business case, we have to look at where's the funding source for that. Flooding is very difficult. We have very little funding for capital schemes for flooding and major capital schemes. We've had the 2 million, and it's included in here, and we show you we give you a breakdown of where that's been spent. Sorry, it's in the next report of we had 2 million allocated from the carbon reserve into flooding, and that's going towards some capital schemes and some highway drainage works. There's a grant and aid process that goes through the regional flood and coastal committees, and there's environment agency flooding for their related schemes. It's quite a complex world to get funding for flooding schemes, even if it impacts the highway. Doesn't often come as a top priority for highway funding because it's not addressing a safety issue. Tends to be temporary issue because the water goes down at some point. Doesn't take away the level of disruption it causes. I mean, look at things like Slash Lane across the A6 floodplain. Every time it rains, that one floods. Unfortunately, there's areas of the network we have to say as a highway authority, there isn't an affordable, viable, deliverable scheme we can do. We have to accept at certain times that part of the network will not be available. And therefore, what is the plan? Is there enough other areas when that piece of the network's not available, we have got a plan of action. Those communities know, don't use Slash Lane, use other ones. I don't know enough data about the Crow Mill. That kind of thing needs to be looked at. But fundamentally, there's a whole load of evidence we have to look at. Needs to see if it stacks up for whatever the available funding things are for either a safety scheme, a flood scheme, an improvement scheme, etc., a growth related scheme, to see if we can get anything. But ultimately,
just to confirm, the Crow Mills was to illustrate the point, which was the broader question about, is there democratic input, or is it you guys looking at evidence? You know, I'll accept that. Is it a bureaucracy or is it a democracy when we make these decisions?
It factors into it, and usually the democratic bit will come because actually we've got from yourselves, the public, this is an issue, so we will then look at it and then we'll look at the evidence. But ultimately the allocation of spend tends to be on that evidence-based thing, because as you've just heard, and I'm sure you appreciate, we don't have enough to do absolutely everything we'd want to do, and the communities would want us to do, so we have to prioritise in some way. And if we just do it on either that community shouts louder than that community, it's very, very difficult to then allocate your money. We have to have some clear way of prioritising. It's not always easy, but we do try and do that on the basis of the evidence, but in the knowledge that for certain aspects in communities, certain issues will be a real problem for them. And that's why it comes to the surface and we look into investigate it in the first place. Sorry, that was a very long answer, Chair. I'm not very articulate.
I believe Councillor Tilbury wants to come in on that.
Yeah, I'll just come in. Thank you, Dr. Box. And I just think I'll clarify that we do absolutely prioritise internal flooding and alleviating that. On Friday, we actually had the same amount of rain pretty much as we did in Storm Hank. We've been prioritising internal floodings now since I got into the cabinet. And in Storm Hank, we had over like 400 properties internally flooded. And at the weekend, I know you can never count 2 storms. We had like 16. Obviously, we'd like that to be 0. But we will, unfortunately, take roads being flooded as opposed to internals being flooded because it will drain away. People will always get frustrated, and you know that I was in saying if they can't get on their routes and they get angry and stuff. But I'd rather that than someone who's been flooded internally is out of the house for a year. Just thought I'd say that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tilbury. I think that was pertinent. Yes, Joanna.
Sorry, Chair, if it's okay with that, I was just going to point out your question about the democratic process and how it influences this. And I think just going back to Anne's point as well, she said about the confirmed funding. So as I mentioned, some of the work comes up through there, but a lot of it won't make its way onto this programme unless we know it's feasible to deliver something. So I don't know about I can have a look at the Chromiums one for you, specific review. But as an example of that, it might be now that we have the confirmed funding, there is a programme of work we're doing on feasibility based on the things that have been raised with us through that sort of democratic process. So, and then what we would do is we as officers would recommend it onto the programme if we can deliver it. And again, I think it's fairly I think we've been fairly open about that this last year's programme, because the money came in very quickly with a please spend in year, and we didn't have that much time to put this programme together. Sort of immediate deliverability is a focus of that, sort of shaping our recommendations. But as we have a longer term, steadier funding, we're able to bring in work based on that evidence base, looking at the feasibility, and then shape the programmes through here. I suppose just to sort of reassure you, the officer's recommended programme goes through here. Your comments are part of that, and Cabinet ultimately signed that programme off. So there is that sort of check and balance through that. And as we move through this 4-year programme, I think it's October, isn't it? And we have to sort of publish an indicative programme to DFT about what we're going to do with the LTG money. So you'll start to see those plans over a longer period of time, and you can ask us about them coming forward.
But do we ever see the plans that you've disregarded during that stage? So, you're looking at what's feasible, you're making decisions based on evidence, but there might be two that are very similar in terms of how needed they are, but you choose one and it comes to us, and then we would never see the other one, which seems like a flaw in the process, really.
Yeah, I suppose the honest answer to that is the ones that we don't take forward, they're normally fed back at a local level. Sort of a county councillor or the parish that's raised it with us would have that response. We don't, I think you're right to say that we don't then collate that and bring that here. These are things we've looked at but can't deliver in that sense. But the local feedback loop would exist on that front. But perhaps as we bring sort of reports now, we've got this sort of longer term programme, there may be more opportunity to discuss that with yourself. Sorry, Anne, Chair.
Right, Councillor Innes, please. Innes, beg your pardon, Innes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is the same question, but it's this report that has to go back by the end of March, I think you said. Has Mr. Tilbury had an input into it? Have we had? Because it sounds like we're putting structure around the spend and having to report back. What I guess I'm concerned about is have we as councillors had the opportunity to shape that?
This report goes to, I wasn't quite clear if you were talking about this report for our capital programme goes to Cabinet in March, or I did mention in the presentation the local transport delivery plan that we have to submit. We're talking, Mr. Tilbury, through that as we go. As I kind of said, it was either, I can't remember if it was late December or early January they announced it. So we are working at pace, so it's not ideal, but we're having to comply with the DFT's, guidance. But the other thing I would say is, while it is at pace, we are putting the draft into DFT by the 20th of March. We do have that kind of second bite of the cherry. I don't expect DFT are expecting major changes, but ultimately we do have a second bite of the cherry because we've put the final thing in by September, which still isn't far long to develop a 4-year programme of works. But, we're certainly talking Mr. Tilbury through that. And equally, the things that are coming through to us, or the things that we're looking at, are the things that are obviously have been in the lists that members, maybe not yourself, but members, the public have raised with us over, potentially years that we've not been able to deliver before. So we're taking the opportunity to look at what are those very worthy schemes that we would have liked to deliver and know that there is a deliverable case, etc., and they're worthwhile schemes because they do meet the criteria, there's the evidence there, etc., to take the opportunity because now we've got the funding path that we can look at those things. So not ideal. We would love more time to talk all of you through it all, but at pace we are keeping Mr. Tilbury updated on that, and we do have a few more months.
Mr. Tilbury, are you happy with that response? Do you feel that you're fully informed?
Yes, essentially every lead members meeting, I'm being informed about it. And then they get cabinet briefings every Tuesday as well. So all of us get to be input on it. But I think what Councillor Boxham said was pertinent actually about these schemes that maybe don't get put in. Obviously, we don't know anything about those. So I think that really does need to be looked at ASAP, because like you said, I know that issue in like South Wigston with the flooding, obviously we don't know about that. And maybe there's issues all around the county that never comes to cabinet and never gets brought up. So I think on that point of view, that is definitely a loophole where it is missed, and appreciate Councillor Boxton bringing that up, because we've got all issues around the county, haven't we? Where it is really important to us, but it never comes on. Because why? Because someone decides not to. But if we as like the cabinet don't get to see it, then we haven't got that. We haven't got the full footing to make a decision, have we? So I think that's something we need to look at really and come up with a solution. Jana, would you like to come back on that?
Only because I'm really keen to actually. I think that's a really good point. My slight worry was about sort of where we pitch that, because obviously I don't know, we're definitely into the hundreds of queries a week, and there could be some really quite small things that we're saying no to, saying no, which we probably wouldn't want to bring as a whole list through something like this. I think there's probably some sort of criteria we put around that, where we're maybe at a certain size or a certain number of people have requested it, or it's definitely supported by yourselves as a councillor. I think if we could just have some time to think about how we do that, perhaps linked to the monitoring, I'm really happy to do it. I'm just trying to think about how to pitch it so that it's sensible and gives you what you need as well.
Yes, Anna.
Just to add on, the other thing to remember is often schemes, although they're not delivered now, they are on a list and something we'd want to do, and at the moment they're sitting in backlog. So it's not that we've said we don't think we'll ever deliver it, it's just that we can't afford it at the moment, so it's gone on to a list somewhere. So there's that criteria as well. There's a programme about what we're delivering next year, for instance, but then we'll have lists of what we would like to deliver in future. So there's the ongoing future programme there. But then, and I think the bit that you're pertaining to and has been raised here quite rightly, is the ones actually we've looked at and we think we'd never want to deliver those. They're the ones that probably you aren't getting visibility of. So I think Jana's absolutely right. If we could think about some thresholds around that, and then how we bring that to you, so you have got some knowledge and visibility of those.
Yes, Mr. Tilbury.
Yeah, just one last thing. I think it'd be good for the elected members to have a list of those projects down there. Is it available for everyone to look at, or just so we can see in our areas what projects are there, so we can see what in the future might or might not go ahead. So then obviously our parish councillors can bring it up with us and we can discuss it with them.
I think you're talking about the next iteration of this report, because actually that Appendix B is the key thing about the list of what's happening next financial year. But you're talking about, I think, how we evolve that a wee bit more. So we'll put some thought to that, and we'll put some thought to, and here's the things that we discounted and wouldn't want to spend money on, given that money is still not enough to deliver everything we want to do. Because as I say, I don't think there's any visibility of that. So we'll give some thought to that.
Jolly good, thank you. Mr. Lovegrove.
Thank you, Chairman. Excellent report as always, and thank you very much for the information. I can't remember whether I said this before, but a couple of quick thank yous. One was I had a very tricky bus route issue between Lincolnshire, Leicestershire and Nottinghamshire, and the team down, they're not here today, but pass on my thanks to them. They did a fantastic job and we got it all sorted out. The second one on a pothole, I reported it on Saturday and it was filled in on Monday. So perfect. Melton Mowbray depot replacement, just to clarification, the relocation of the existing recycling and household waste site. I know I'm a broken record on it, but it does then say in brackets, subject to separate capital bid. Should I be concerned about that? Or do you think that capital bid would come through? No, I've got a quick supplementary as well.
The reason we don't have a costing yet, which is why we haven't got a capital bid in yet. So we are doing that work at the moment in terms of that RHWS, and I think it's fair to say it's got a bit more impetus because of the highways depot. We are looking, which does have a capital thing at it, and we're looking if we could possibly bring those together and get other efficiencies and advantages, etc. So that will be accelerating. But the reason it's not in is because to additionally, Patney's team have had an issue with their depot for a very long time because it's been on a lease basis. And just for members' knowledge, we can't operate a winter gritting service in that area of the county without a depot in the Melton area. It's just physically too long and too far to deliver those routes with our gritting fleet. So we do need a depot. So that has been a priority for us for a number of years, and we're now, well on with that. But, along, as you'll know, that, over the last year or two, we began to have some real issues with the RHWS depot, and we are now trying to bring those pieces of work together. But historically, we've had the money for the highways depot and the capital programme, but not the RHWS. But hopefully that will catch up fairly soon. If I could just add, sorry, well, I can just have a quick one. Buses, thanks very much to Jana's team. She'll pass that on. Potholes, it's great to hear that, but I just wanted a caveat for members. We have over 3 times in the month of February, we've had 3 times higher than the highest winter month last year in terms of pothole defects reports dealing. So while, and I've probably said to this committee before, while what we normally do is the vast majority, well over 90% of our pothole repairs are first time fix, it's permanent repair, and a very small percentage is temporary. We're having to at the moment, because of the absolute volume, do far more, the majority are temporary repairs. We will go back over the coming weeks and months to make a permanent repair, but it's just in case you get people coming to you to say that repair's not very good and it's coming out, whatever. We are doing our utmost to deal with the level and volume of repair defects that are happening. You see it all the time, we all do, don't we, out there? But this is not a normal operation, but we're having to because of the volumes. I just wanted to put that out there because I know you will get people coming to you to say that kind of thing. We will be coming back over the coming weeks and months to make those permanent.
Thank you. Then the next one, just very quickly, I was in Nottinghamshire a week ago Tuesday, and the potholes in Nottinghamshire are disgusting. Had a tour of the MMDR, which was fantastic, and on the Burton Road there is a spur for the south section of the MMDR. How do we get that as a discussion point for Leicestershire County Council to make that an active scheme again? What do we need to do? Thank you.
Okay, so I think the first thing to say is that, as a kind of policy position, that link is still very much part of our strategy in Melton. That hasn't changed. You might be aware Melton are currently reviewing their or refreshing. It's not a full review. It's I can't remember the technical phrase for it, apologies, but it's like an interim review of the local plan. And as part of that, they are working with the development industry to bring forward development for the southern neighbourhood. I think effectively our strategy is to understand what the development industry can provide and how that would work, and then respond to that. And partly that's about, obviously, I think it's absolutely right that the development industry should pay for as much infrastructure as possible as part of its work. And then we would look to work with that. I'm aware as well that although it was a Homes England funding scheme that we were originally working on, they have asked about opportunities in Leicestershire as well, and we've obviously drawn their attention to that. So I haven't got a definite promise. We've not dropped off the agenda. It's just not on the capital programme because we're doing our work through sort of partnership approach with Melton and the developers at the moment. If there's something obvious that might bring that forward, that would be when then we would sort of consider it through our processes. So we've definitely not forgotten about it, and I it's certainly our position, and I've worked on that scheme for a long time, that whole section works best completed, and we would want to support that.
Thank you. That's fantastic news, and I think I'd speak for all 4 Melton County councillors. We'd happily put our shoulder to the wheel if you need any help.
Yes, Councillor Tilbury.
Yeah, just a really quick one, and Councillor Lovegrove and Innes. You say do offers come to me about that? We've already discussed that project, and that's something that we're looking to hopefully move forward in the future when we get the funding. Thank you.
And just a quick note about potholes. I find that the ones in Warwickshire are pretty grim, especially on the roundabout over the M6 at Rugby, Junction 1. Now, I know they're working on the dual carriageway from the town up to the roundabout, but according to causeway1.net, there's no work planned for the actual roundabout itself. So there's another one. Councillor MacDonald.
Well, is anybody looking at autonomous travel, autonomous buses, trucks from the council? Because I know for a fact that there are other councils running these vehicles at the moment. I don't know how successful, but it doesn't seem to be that Leicester's doing anything about this at the moment. The other thing is 2050, I reckon there won't be any buses running. It'll just all be little runarounds going various places. That's how the trade sees that. So you got any movement on?
We don't actually operate any of our bus services ourselves, so we don't do that. In terms of our council fleet, though, you know, obviously for highways, waste, etc., we have a lot of vehicles. I'm not aware of anything in the market, and I think the bigger issue is there isn't legislation yet in this country about how autonomous vehicles would actually operate on the roads. So, you know, there's something that is something we would want to take a lead from national on something like that, because, you know, you've got to have those regulations in about how it would operate on. No, we haven't, because actually
that's been running from last summer at outside Great Yarmouth. Great Yarmouth, what's the name of the town next to it? And it's a 16-seater. Still got a driver in the front, but
I mean, that was something we would look to the bus companies. As I say, we don't run our own bus services for the public. That would be something the bus operators, but I'm assuming, are looking into as their tech advances. As you know, many have gone electric, etc. They'll be looking at the next innovation, I'm sure.
To be looking at that, if unless someone's going to pay for the technology.
Now, as I understand it, and maybe I'm jumping in here, there are one or two trials, but still government hasn't actually decided and given it permission. So maybe your bus trip was one of the trials. It's running every day. Well, perhaps contacting the council there and asking them, might Anne.
Just sorry, a general observation about innovation, AI, all these kind of things. You know, I think it is a challenge for us as individual councils how we keep up with this and how we look at what we invest in. Bear in mind, we don't have lots of money to put into things that don't work. We need to get bang for our bucks, don't we? You know, be that different materials and surfacing for highways maintenance, or be that buying vehicles, because none of these are cheap. You know, if we're looking at a new gritter, you know, you're in the hundreds of thousands, etc., for one vehicle. So what we need to do is try and de-risk where there is innovation. So if government's doing things or private sector, etc., I think the challenge for us is to keep up with that and then learn from that. And when we you know, it's tried and tested, and obviously there's the right regulation if that's needed for something like, you know, autonomous vehicles, you know, then decide at the right time to invest in it. We don't have lots of money for research and development or trialing things, so we have to be quite astute about that. But you're absolutely right, it's a challenge for us. We need to be looking at these things and seeing what's right for us and what's the right time to invest.
Caught, and the robot's picking up the bins and throwing them in the back of the truck.
No.
You know, that's something that's coming.
So is there any other questions? Right, then that's the recommendation. The report is going to the Cabinet on the 24th of March, where Councillor Tilbury will go through it all over again for approval. The committee's comments will be presented to the Cabinet at that meeting. Jolly good. Item 10, Highways Drainage Programme and Works Update. And I think that's you, Mr. Clark.
It is indeed. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so this report provides you with an update of the 2025-2026 Highway Drainage Programme, covering both revenue and capital works as approved by the Council in March 25. Delivery is taking place against an increased challenging backdrop driven by more frequent and severe weather events, historically underinvestment leading to asset backlogs, and the rising costs and the increased demands that's placed on the service. Despite these pressures, the drainage programme is on track and is targeted on risk and community impact. Leicestershire has experienced multiple major flooding events since 2023. January 2005 saw 720 properties, the worst event in modern local history. Point 7 on the report outlines all the incidents from 2023 to 2025. Some of them were named storms, but equally some of them were not. And in addition to this information in the report, I have been advised this week that we have just gone through the wettest winter Leicestershire has seen on record. These events increase pressure on drainage assets and the highway asset overall. Significant increase in customer inquiries and reactive works, and heightened resilience on third-party assets like water companies, rivers, riparian owners, which can limit the effectiveness of the highway drainage. Flooding is increasing systemically, but it's not just about cleaning gullies. 2025-2026 programme delivery so far. In Leicestershire, we have over 130,000 roadside gullies on the network, all of which are managed with a risk-based approach. So what have we done? We have emptied 89,560 planned gullies have been cleansed in 2025-26. And by the time the report was written, that figure was 81,042. We also emptied 1,866 reactive cleanses. So we went out there reactively and cleansed the gully. 961 locations were surveyed and jetted, and 418 locations investigated, dig downs and repaired. And over 51,000 rural grips were re-established and cleansed. As far as the capital programme is concerned, capital drainage repairs is ahead of forecast slightly, but it is being managed proactively in the budget. Table 5 details the flood alleviation schemes and culvert replacements that have been scheduled for this year. Multiple schemes have already been delivered, with 2 deferred to 26-27 needing additional funding. So there's a key message. Investment is being targeted where it delivers long-term resilience benefits. In March 2025, we undertook an extensive review of our gully priorities in relation to the hotspots on the network. Over 5,200 gullies were updated to a higher cleanse priority. This is indicated in Table 2. Trials planned for April 26 to move us to a priority 3 complete gully cleanse over 40 months have started with the additional investment. The key message is smarter data-led maintenance is not simply about frequency of gullies. Customer demands. So drainage inquiries have increased year on year. A significant rise in outstanding lower priority cases, often linked to third-party assets, have been demonstrated in the report. During 2025, a risk-based approach was introduced for all inquiries, with the highest base priority given to flooding, internal property flooding, critical infrastructure issues, and safety and network resilience, all outlined in point 26. Looking ahead for 26-27 and the Carbon Reduction Fund, additional funding has been made available from the reserves, along with the additional money from the Carbon Reduction Fund. Some of it is going into highway maintenance, and we will use that in the best way possible. This will support proactive culvert inspections and replacements, mapping of our underground services. Currently, we've mapped about 15%. Development of SUDS and asset management approach, and proactive ditch cleansing. The fund is shifting from reactive to a more proactive service. But with this increase in funding, we also are looking at increasing demands. Severe weather impacts can overwhelm drainage systems. We also have recruitment challenges, just like all operational processes at the moment. But the key message is managing flooding is what we're looking to do. We cannot eliminate flooding. So the overall conclusion, the highways drainage team is on track to deliver the programme for 25-26. Investment is increasing, and we are using a risk-based approach, evidence-led, and a focus on resilience approach. However, long-term funding and capacity constraints still remain a significant challenge. Thank you for your attention, members. Please note the contents of this report.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Tilbury.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a quick one from me. Thanks, Pat, for the report. I don't really need to add anything too much from that. I'd just like to say that obviously we have had the wettest winter recorded. Every Friday absolutely seems to hammer it down without fail. We went to bed on Friday, the Met Office didn't say there was going to be any issues, weren't on red or anything like that. Come 3 o'clock in the morning when most of us are asleep, it all changed, and then we woke up 7 o'clock on Saturday morning to absolute carnage. I would like to say, from my point of view, whenever I had a lot of issues, and it was dealt with pretty much immediately by officers that went out there and sorted the issues out. Like I said, we did limit the internal floodings quite well. Most of the issues were main watercourse, which the EA do have overriding control about. And I think just from our point of view, what we're doing does seem to be working. I think just making sure we knit it together with EA and Severn Trent is our next steps on the agenda, and we have got like a sit down with them scheduled in very soon. And yeah, thank you for the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Lovegrove.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Pat. Very good report. Just a quick question from memory, and I think you answered some of it about intelligence. Live in a rural area, when it does rain, a lot of the gullies get either mud, stone, and detritus, and they get blocked very quickly. Was there a time when we were talking about the potential of the priority 1, 2s, and 3s reducing the months of cleansing, or is that just in my imagination? Is it the priority 3s to priority 2s that's been done, so some are more important now, because and the priority 3 has gone from 24 months to 40 months. I mean, that's a hell of a long time. But I'm sure some of the gullies are fairly clean all of the time and don't need doing, but it just seems as if it's going backwards to what my thinking was. Just if you can clarify, Pat, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So our priorities are not changing. So the priority 1s, the priority 2s and the priority 3s in our gully cleansing, with the exception of the priority 3s. In the past, we would go and look at them, but the additional funding now has been given to us so we can go and cleanse them. What I think you're alluding to is we did do the review on all our gully assets, and we've seen that some of our gullies needed to change priority. So those gullies may have been a priority 3 in the past, they were brought to priority 2, and the ones that may have been a priority 2 were brought into priority 1. And what you will see in table 2 is the number of gullies that have actually changed the priority. So they've, an example being the top line there, priority 2 changed to priority 1. So 4,677 gullies changed from a priority 2 to a priority 1.
Okay. Is there any? Oh, Mrs. Seaton.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that report, Pat. I can't let this time go without mentioning Churchill Bridge. I'm very disappointed to say, not really, that Churchill Bridge is now closed. It's been closed this week and it will be closed next week, but not because it had flooded. It's because it's being prioritised, and the work is being doing for the future of lining the pipe work. And also Barkby Brook that has been cleaned out by Ida Verde with the help of County Council on there, and getting riparian rights sorted out as well. So I'm sitting here feeling quite smug at the moment, and I'm just taking that, and I just want to say thank you very much. When I first became a county councillor, I thought I could conquer the world in the first week or the first year. And then I realised that Churchill Bridge wasn't going to be an easy solution. But a decade down the line, it looks as though it's been resolved. So thank you very much.
Well, there's good news for us all. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Mr. Clark.
Can I just pick up on the question earlier on about Crow Mills? Do you mind to box them? So Crow Mills, what the challenge that we've got down there is the river, the Saw actually tops its bank, and the floodplain can't handle with it. And what it does is it comes out onto the highway. So it's one of those that we've got to work with the EA around how do they get full capacity into their network so it doesn't do that, because it does have an effect on the highway. Doesn't mean to say that the highway is not doing what it needs to do. It very much is in around. We need other assets to work in different ways so it's not affecting our highway.
So it's possible to get the river improved so that it takes the water away better. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's
because I mean the other way would be to raise the highway slightly for like 100-metre stretch where it floods.
Yeah, the disbursement of water is a difficult thing to deal with, but that's the reason why. That's the reason why we will be working with the EA, as Councillor Tilbury has said, on these locations, and Crow Mills is definitely one of those locations.
Yes, Councillor Tilbury.
Yeah, just to Dr. Bloxham, I think we did the walk around there, didn't we? You mentioned it.
No,
was that
you
mentioned it. I think when I approached the EA with that, we talked about maybe raising the bank slightly, but nothing's happened with it so far. But we're willing to sit down and bring it up. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good. Yeah, I sympathise with the people who are struggling with problems. I'm glad to hear that at least Churchill Bridge is moving forward. In my village, we have a road which is flooded on and off. I think they started working on it in the 1960s, and it still floods regularly. And I'm not sure what the result of that's going to be. Anyway, if there's no other questions, we will take that as a recommendation. We'll put the notes to the minutes and pass it on again to. No, we're not going to pass it on to Cabinet. It's an update report. I'm sorry. Yes. Is there an echo in here? Thank you very much. Mrs. Crothers, did you want to do? No, okay, thank you. Right, so Highways Transport and Waste Performance Report. And over to Anna Nicola.
I'll start, thanks very much. And I'll be brief because I know we've had a long meeting. This is our 6 monthly update on the performance indicator, so you'll be familiar with it. In the reporting period is up to December 25, just for information, where we've got those indicators that we can update. In summary, 7 of our performance indicators are in the top quartile. That's the top 25% when compared to our comparator authorities. We've got 3 in the bottom quartile. We've got 20 KPIs, 7 are in the green, 12 are in amber, and 1 are in red of those 20. I always find Appendix B useful to look at just as a summary page for your information. So I'll just whiz you through some of those. I won't go through all of them because they've not all been updated. Of the indicators that have been updated, while satisfaction with condition of highways is actually reduced, we're still in the top quartile for that, so we're still doing quite well, but we have seen a small drop there in that satisfaction. And that's a similar picture for the satisfaction with condition of pavements and footways. Satisfaction with local bus services and the number of local bus passenger journeys that originate in our area have both dropped there, and they sit in quartile 4. And depending on how well you remember these, that has been a consistent position for a while. We've never recovered in the pre-COVID period where the numbers were much higher. Equally, during COVID, they were down about 3 million. We're now about the 10 million mark. So we've never really got to the pre-COVID situation again. It's a bit better picture for satisfaction with the rights of way network. That's improved slightly and it sits in quarter 2. Satisfaction with traffic levels and congestions also dropped, however, this time around. I won't dwell on the road safety indicators because you've already had the road safety report, other than to say they all sit in the top quartile. Again, it reflects, what you saw in that earlier report. We are a high performing authority in terms of road safety. Not to say there's not lots more to do, as you've already discussed, but we do come out well in comparison to those other authorities. Second page of the dashboard, the recycling rates when we're looking at waste have declined slightly to 43% and just below the target and sit within the 3rd quartile. Landfill rates and household waste per household, they both improve slightly but don't do well nationally, being the 4th and the 3rd quartile respectively. We do anticipate improvements in those areas coming from the waste reforms, and you as a committee have heard about some of those waste reforms for the collection and packaging reforms, and I'm sure you're aware that food waste is about to be rolled out very soon and later this year in Leicestershire. So again, some of these things will impact on some of those indicators. On the performance indicators on the last page of the dashboard that have been updated this time round, none have materially changed. They're very similar to last time, so I wasn't going to dwell on those. They were the ones I was just going to highlight, Chair, but happy to take any questions.
Oh, thank you. And are there any questions? Oh, Councillor Tilbury first. I'm sure you'd like to make a comment.
Actually, Chair, I won't on this one. I think it's all been explained very well. Thank you.
Jolly good. No other comments? Well, as that is an update report, it will not be passed to Cabinet and it will be taken and none of the comments will be recorded. Okay, thank you very much. Next is date of next meeting. It's scheduled for 2 p.m. on the 4th of June and I shall look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you all very much indeed.